Welcome to Rambam in Depth. Today we'll be discussing the Rambam Hilchos Bias Hamigdash Perek Hey Halacha Aleph. Mitzvahs asay lekadosh kain ha'evid yadav v'raglov v'achakach yaved. There's a mitzvah, a positive commandment in the Torah that a kain who's doing the aveda should sanctify, wash his hands and feet, and afterwards he can do the aveda. Shenemar, as it says, v'rachatzu Aaron avana mimenus yadeim v'sragleim, that Aaron and his children have to wash their hands and feet. And v'kayin she'avad v'loy kiddush yadav v'raglov shachris. If a kayin does the aveda and he doesn't sanctify himself, he doesn't cleanse himself in the morning before the aveda, chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. Then he's chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. Shenemar, as it says, yirchatzu mayim v'lo yamusu. Avidase psula, and his aveda that he does is disqualified. Bein kayin hedil, bein kayin gadol, whether it's a regular kayin or a kayin gadol. So the question that is disputed is whether this obligation to wash your hands and feet, is it only when you're going to do an aveda in the Beis Hamikdash, or does it apply just to entering the Beis Hamikdash? So Tosfos in Yuma, Daf Hey Amud Beis, brings the Ritzbah that says that even if you come into the Beis Hamikdash and you don't do any aveda, you have to wash your hands and feet. And Tosfos there brings that Rashi and Chumash disagrees, and he says only when you're doing an aveda. And that's also the day of the Ramban and the Ravid in his Pirush on Teres Kayanim. So what is the Rambam Shita? So if we look at the Rambam's wording over here, it seems very clear when he says mitzvahs asay likadosh behen ha'eved yadav v'raglov, that the mitzvah is on the person, the kayin who does the aveda, and he v'achakach yaved, he says. So it's mashma from the Rambam, and that's how the many mefarshim of the Rambam a medayik from his words, that it's dafka when you do the aveda, but if it's bia rikonis, if you just come into the Heschel without washing your hands and feet, there is no din of shaloi rachatz yadav v'raglav. That doesn't apply there. So the Minchas Chinuch, mitzvah kuf ches, raises a question. The Rambam in Hilchos Beis Abchira, Perek Zayin Halacha Chaf Aleph, says ha'heichel mekudesh mebein ha'ulam u'lemizbeach. He's going through all the different levels of Kedusha in the Beis Hamikdash. And after the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, he says the next level of Kedusha is the Heschel. Heschel is holier than the Bein Ulam and the Mizbeach. And how does that higher level of holiness manifest itself? So the Rambam says, She'ein nichnas l'sham el rachatz yadayim v'raglayim, that the only one who can come in there is someone who's washed his hands and his feet. So from there it's mashma, the Minchas Chinuch says, that it has nothing to do with Aveda. Just going in to the Heichal is enough. Under any circumstances he's chayiv. And the Minchas Chinuch has to come up with a very difficult answer by saying that Kedusha is only midirabanan. Minatera, you don't need to wash your hands and feet, but it's not mashma that way. From the Rambam there, it's not mashma that it's midirabanan. It seems that it's midiraisa. So there's a Sefer Mitzvahs HaMelech, a contemporary Sefer on Sefer HaMitzvahs, who answers this question of the Minchas Chinuch, behegdem, another question. That the Rambam seems to contradict himself from the Sefer Hayad that we just learned to the Sefer HaMitzvahs. In Sefer HaMitzvahs, the Rambam, in the original translation of the Rambam, Pirush Mishnayos, of course, was written in Judeo-Arabic. So when it was translated, it says the following: Shetziva hakayinim lirchis adeim v'ragleim, kol zman sheyitztarchu lehikones behechel ve'laveda aveda. So there it seems that it's only when he does the aveda, when he enters the hechel and he does the aveda. But in the Heller edition of Sefer HaMitzvahs and the Kapach version of the Sefer HaMitzvahs, it has one word differently. Shenetztavu hakayinim Levad, only kayinim were commanded, lirchatz yadeim v'ragleim, b'chol zman sheyitzrichim lehikonis lehechol, oy laved, or hakriv lehikarev laveda. In other words, the Rambam throws in the word oy, not and, where you can translate it both ways, but oy, one or the other, that even going into the hechol, it's also a time when you're chayiv for not washing your hands and feet. So if the Rambam in Sefer Hayad makes it clear, the way Mefarshim Medayik, it's dafka to do the Aveda, In Sefer HaMitzvahs, it seems that even if it's not to do the Aveda. So the stira between Sefer HaMitzvahs and Sefer HaYad is not always a big question, because the Rambam did change his mind in many areas of halacha, but it's much more geschmack if you could say that the Rambam is not really changing his mind. And anyhow, we have to reconcile the contradiction between what he says here, the Hilchos Bias HaMikdash, that it's only to do the Aveda, and in Hilchos Beis HaBchira, he makes it clear that even going into the Heschel requires washing hands and feet. And by the way, the Chinuch, who usually cites the language of the Rambam, also says, Lirchatz Yadayim V'Raglayim, Kol Eis Hikanis LeHechel, V'Haba Lavid Aveda. Whenever he enters the Heschel, and one who comes to do the Aveda. So it's clear that it's not just to do the Aveda. According to the Chinuch, which is mashma, that's the Rambam's shita as well in Sefer HaMitzvahs. So the answer in the Sefer Mitzvahs HaMelech, a very simple answer, that the Rambam is, there are two different dinim over here. There's a chiyuv of Aveda, that's what he's talking about in Hilchos Bias HaMikdash. There, the reason for the washing the hands and feet is because you're doing an Aveda. But then there's another din, that the Heichel, the Kedusha of the Heichel, demands washing your hands and feet. It's a separate din. So in Hilchos Beis HaBchira, where he's talking about the Beis HaMikdash itself, the Heichel itself, there he says that the Heichel requires washing your hands and feet. Mashe'en Kain, in Hilchos Bias HaMikdash, we're talking about Aveda primarily, so therefore he focuses on the Aveda. And with this, he answers another question, another diuk. It's not such a strong diuk, but it's a diuk. In Hilchos Beis HaBchira, he says, "Ha'heichel mekudesh mebein ha'ulam el-mizbeach she'ein nichnas l'sham ela rachutz yadayim v'raglayim." You have to wash your hands and feet. In Hilchos Bias HaMikdash, he doesn't just say washing your hands and feet. He says about lekadesh kayin ha'eved yadav v'raglav. Not rechetz, to wash, but lekadesh. What's the difference? So he brings a Ravid in his Pirush to Masechta Tamid. Just to note, the Ravid doesn't disagree with the Rambam in Hilchos Bias HaMikdash. So it seems that the Ravid would also hold that it's only for Aveda, it's not for the Heichel. Otherwise, it would seem that the Ravid would be masig on the Rambam. So this is what the Ravid says in his Pirush and Masechta Tamid. And he brings a Taisvus that Lamanda Omar, it says in Zvachim, Daf Nun Tes Amud Aleph, that the Kier was situated between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, in that area. So the question is, it says in Tesefta of Kalim, there's also likanes bein the Ulam and the Mizbeach, shalei rachatz yadav v'raglav. You're not allowed to go there without washing. So how could you reach the Kier? The Kier is in a place where you can't go in without washing your hands and feet. And one answer is that that's talking about washing your hands and feet without the Kier. Yes, you have to wash your hands and feet when you go to between Ulam and Mizbeach, but that's without the Kier. Any other keli you could use, like the Kohen Gadol, it says in Yom Kippur, he wouldn't wash his hands from the Kier, he would wash from a Kitin Shel Zav, a golden utensil. So when you go to before you go to the Kier, to get to the Kier, you have to wash your hands and feet. Yes, it's true. But when you wash your hands and feet for Aveda, there it's different. For Aveda, it has to come from the Kier. And that will explain the Shinei Haloshin and the Rambam as well. And Hilchos Bias HaMikdash, where he's talking about doing Aveda, he's not talking about going into the Heichel or between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, which is like the Heichel in that regard. In that case, he has to wash from the Kier. It's Lekadesh. It has a certain Kedusha. It's not just washing your hands and feet. You're sanctifying yourself. Masha'enken and Hilchos Beis HaBchira, where he's talking about the din that when you're just going into the Heichel itself requires washing your hands and feet. There it's not a din of Lekadesh from the Kier. There it's a din just of washing hands and feet. It could come from any other keli. So for that case, the Rambam just uses the Lashon Rachatz Yadayim V'Raglayim.